I'm just making funny faces at the video because I never know exactly when it's going to be live. Hey, everybody. Nicole Sauce here. We're going to do a live recording of today's podcast. And it took me a little more than 5 minutes to get ready for this because I like went to go and I was like, wait, my microphone needs to be in my place. And I bring my microphone up and then it's not giving any sound. I couldn't figure out why. And I finally realized, you know what? This is a pro tip for all you podcasters out there. If your mic is not plugged in, it does not work. So first, I want to know from y'all who are listening right now on the YouTube live stream, can you hear me okay? Is it overdriven? Is it not loud enough? Because I can fix that now. But if we get into the show, I may not notice that you're saying, hey, you sound like crap. And the reason I'm asking is when I go from live stream to like a Zoom thing, then I end up, oh, hey, Ryan, long time no see. Thanks. Okay, so the audio is good. When I did a webinar this weekend on canning, and I used my lapel mic, and yeah, once I do the setting change, I screwed. Like it just stopped there, so I had to change all the sound settings anyway. Okay, so here's how this goes now. We haven't done one of these in a long time. I'm going to hit record on GarageBand. I'm going to do the podcast as usual. If you have questions or comments along the way, you'll see me looking to the right. This is you on YouTube, but in front of me is the actual podcast recording. I will try to integrate your comments as I see them as we go. I'm going to be sharing today about what I learned from taking a week off, a great reset for me personally, which I did marginally poorly, but we'll go into that in the show. And I integrate things as best I can. If I make a mistake on the audio recording, I don't just like keep going and go back and edit. What I like to do is edit right away. If I already know I screwed something up so royally that I need to edit, I stop the recording, I cut the bad part, and I hop back in. And this is part of how I efficiently get my podcast out. I'm sharing that with you in case any of y'all have podcasts that you like to do. And that's just a tip because it's way easier to edit on the go if you can than to go back and like look for the section that you need to cut out. And it rarely happens. There is one memorable live recording where I had a big fight with my jacket because it got really hot in my office. Okay, so that's all the deal. And I will stay on. If there's a bunch of interest, I'll stay on and take questions and answers after I'm done recording for the podcast. Now I am going to jump in. Also, if you're seeing this and think you want to let your friends know to jump in, feel free to grab the link, invite them to come to the live stream episode. This was kind of done on a whim without telling anybody in advance. I need to get this mic in the right place. Hello, Mike. Yeah, it's directional. Can you tell when I do this, I'm really loud. When I do this, I'm less loud. When I do this, it doesn't pop as bad. If I do this, whoa. Hold your horses. Right, Ryan? Okay. So we're going to get into the recording. And to do that, I just make sure my stupid metronome thing is turned off and hit record. Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, July. I don't know what today is. I didn't write that in my show notes. That's my first mistake of the day. Holy cow. What day is it, everybody? Tell me what day it is today. I have no idea. Calendar, where are you? That's terrible. I'm just, at that point, I'm just going to start the whole recording over. But I got to get to a calendar. It's the 26th. All right. I was going to say 27th. One time I just said I don't know what date it is in my podcast and left it. Okay, let's do that over. Take two. Anybody? Take two. Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, July 26th, 2021, and this is episode 456 of Living Free in Tennessee. And we are getting darn close to episode 500. I'm going to start setting up for something special for 500. So in celebration of the 500th episode of Living Free in Tennessee, I was hoping that y'all could share with me something you've gotten out of this podcast that has made your life better. And you can either send me an audio file via email to Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, or you can just send me an email and I'll read it. It's up to you if you have intimidation or not. I may get a phone call in line for you to leave a voicemail at as well. But it'd be really kind of fun to do a celebration episode just going over those things that like you've gotten from the podcast have changed your life for the better. And I guess if it's changed it for the worse, maybe I want to know that story too. I'm not sure if I'm brave enough for that. Anyway, today we're going to talk about success and failure from the great personal reset I took a little over a week ago. I decided I needed to take a whole week off and not be online and not be working on the earning money part of my life and really hone in on some domestic tasks around the house. Because if you think about permaculture and you take a permaculture approach to your property outside, it's a really good idea to take that same approach inside and to think of things like systems that feed each other and function stack and all of those other principles that come out of permaculture. And when I set up this house originally, I did not do that. And I have learned so much about systems since that time that I have been sort of implementing one thing at a time. Well, I thought, you know what? Part of what happens is I get started on this stuff and then I get distracted and then I don't get it done because I'm so busy and then I'm tired at night and blah, 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 excuse. Well, I'm not taking excuses for this anymore. So I thought, you know what? I'll do double work on 1 week, which is hard. And then I will take the next week off. So I'm going to give you some lessons learned from that experience. Before we get into that, though, if you want to send me feedback or questions, it's Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, or you can go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, fill out the form there, and those emails come directly to me. And I did want to talk about one other thing. This is for ladies, but for gents as well. I have gotten my first special operations equipment belt. That guy John Willis, that guy makes some really high quality stuff. Like he knows what he's doing. He cares about the quality of his product. He chooses fabrics that aren't going to break down. He makes sure he trims extra thread ends. And I don't know if you've bought things like backpacks or other things that are manufactured poorly in a sweatshop somewhere, but they're cheap. You'll notice there's threads hanging off. They'll start unstitching. It's actually really frustrating. The very dress I'm wearing right now is going to fall apart, in part because the fabric is crap, and in part because the sewing job is crap. And that is what we have decided is acceptable in many of the products we have. Well, I've been really, I have a great leather belt, but it weighs about 90 pounds, and it does hold my pants up, so that's good. But it's not exactly convenient to carry certain things that a woman out alone on her own may want to carry for self-defense. And I was like, you know what? He specializes in making gear for people who carry such things in their professional lives, like police officers and military and that sort of thing. I bet the belt that this dude makes, or one of the belts, is great. And so I tried out the EDC belt that he has with no buckle. So it has a hook. And what I was looking for was holding my pants up because pants fall down. They just do. It's a thing. And I don't want to plumb out, right? Who wants to plumb out? I tried it out and it's designed brilliantly. So I can not carry and have it tight in a certain way, or I can add a holster and it gives me a little bit more room. But the other cool thing about this for the ladies is if we are of an age where we are still having cycles, we can expand or contract 10 pounds in a week. And I don't know about other women, but where I get that is in a spare tire right where my belt is. And the reason I know that is when I had a wedding once, and the seamstress yelled at me the day before my wedding when she did the final fitting, and I had these wings on the side of my waist. And she said, "What? How?" Because she had just fitted me 5 days before. And I said, well, I had my period and I retain water and then I don't have that water anymore. She's like, well, just so you know, all of that is in this one 4-inch strip around your waist. And I said, well, I didn't know that, but I do know my clothes fit differently. So this belt's really cool because it can be expanded or contracted as needed, and it's really well made. I've been, kind of playing with it for about a week. I've had it for about a week. Love this thing. And I'm so excited about it that I put the link in the show notes in case anybody else is interested and checking out the belts that John Willis makes. He makes other kinds of belts, but this one in particular, it's low profile, so it doesn't like add a bunch of layers to your belt, right? From a vanity standpoint, as a woman, it's kind of nice not to have a belt that sticks way out and makes your stomach look big. And then also from a quality standpoint, this thing's awesome. I did have to have a lesson on how to put it on right. So if you get one, watch the video, because you can get it on a variety of ways, and one way is really annoying if you have to unhook it and hook it again. The way he showed me how to put it on, I was like, okay, I see why it's done that way. It all makes sense. Okay, with that, it's time for the first segment of today's show, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store, or storing what you eat and eating what you store. And this is something that's been kind of sticking in my craw since I got the freeze dryer. And I think it's because I'm not at one with this concept of I'm going to put up tons of food and store it for 25 years in case I ever need it 25 years from now concept. Now, of course, it's a free world. Everybody can do what they're going to do, right? Like, cool. And there may be a reason that you think you're going to be supporting a lot of people who are not currently in your house if there is ever a long-term problem. So I get it. But if you come to building a pantry first from the perspective of 25 years from now, I might need 5 years of food, rather than using it as a tool to empower yourself to better plan your life, I think it's wrong. And there's just a lot of, how do I store lard for 25 years? Well, you don't. You grow the pigs and you cycle it through, and you're making new lard every year, and you need to figure out how to keep that pig alive, and the next generation of pigs, and the next generation of pigs, right? Or you make a relationship with a farmer who's doing that, and then you've got yourself covered. It's two different approaches to life. And I was just kind of thinking about that as I looked at how people come to this idea of having a pantry and then start storing things they don't eat because they store for a long time. Wouldn't you much rather, if you ever have to tap into your pantry, have the things that you actually like? That's what we've worked towards for 14 years here at the Holler Homestead, where we grow what we can on the property. I have relationships with nearby farmers for the things I fail at, which happens all the time. And I have learned how to preserve. I've learned how to can. I've learned how to dry. I've learned how to freeze. And now I've learned how to freeze dry. All of those tools have different benefits for the food storage. I've figured out which kind of storage I like for which kind of food. And also with a balance of, you can't just freeze everything because you run out of freezer space. So prioritizing freezer space for the things that I most like to have frozen rather than canned or dried, or now freeze dried. The freeze dryer has completely freed me from milk and egg storage problems. Because the two things that were taking up a lot of space in the freezer were milk, which I don't can, and eggs, which I don't can. And so what I would do is like freeze eggs so I could have scrambled eggs in the winter when the ducks stop laying. Now I can freeze dry those and I don't have to refrigerate them. So in exchange for $2 worth of electricity, I get 60 eggs freeze dried. And when you reconstitute them with cold water and cook them, they're close enough to scrambled fresh eggs that they taste like scrambled fresh eggs. So I'm pretty impressed with some of those things. That means that my whole pantry approach this year has been a little bit different, where I'm not freezing up the eggs and taking up all that space. Now I have to figure out more mason jars and more storage in a cool, dark place. Because the thing about pantry storage is you want it in a cool, dark, pest-free place. That said, this is what happened this week. I got a bushel of beans from one of those local farmers because although I planted beans this year, I then proceeded to completely ignore the fact that I had that part of the garden and let the weeds take them over. And then I decided to give up and just focus on my zone 1 garden and do the best I can with that. And it's because I have a weird setup here from a permaculture standpoint. I have a garden space that is not in zone 1 because that's where the garden was when I moved here, and the soil is great up there. But, in keeping with permaculture practices, I also don't go up there enough. So we're addressing that a bit. We're starting to adjust the flow of the property so that I'm more likely to go there as a zone 1 location, as well as make it a little bit easier to manage. So bean failure here, and then Nicole gave up and just focused on the Tramontina squash and tomatoes and the cucumbers and the stuff that's in my zone 1 area. So when I saw a bushel available of green beans, I was like, great, I'm doing a meat canning webinar. I totally will. I'll also get this done Saturday. Well, that didn't happen, but Sunday I got 14 jars put up from that. So that's great. Usually I get 20 from the bushel of beans, but I took 4 jars worth of green beans and put them in my fridge for fresh eating, because there's no point in getting garden fresh vegetables and then just canning them and not eating them fresh. Am I right? Am I right? I'm right. I know I'm right. And then I also noticed some chatter online about canning pickles, and somebody asked this question, which is, how do you keep pickles, like cucumbers, fresh enough for pickling so that you can do a whole batch, which is 7 jars, by the way, my friends, if it takes a couple of days from your plants? Because, you get 2Z, 3Z, 10Z cucumbers at a time, but you may not get enough cucumbers in one day to do pickles for a whole batch. And a lot of people had advice about how to refrigerate them and how to store them and all these other things. I don't do that. Pickles are annoying unless you have lots of cucumber plants. And the reason pickles are annoying, although they're very tasty, so I totally make them every year. The reason they're annoying is you get a few at a time. And the way I manage this is I pickle a few jars of pickles at a time, not 7, unless I get my hands on, a box of cucumbers from another farm that's growing more cucumbers than I am. Or there was a year where I had like the field of cucumbers and then I pickled all at once. Yeah. So what I will do is I will get my brine ready, which is sort of the salt vinegar mix that you're using to pickle them. Or if you're doing bread and butter, it's got sugar in it. And then I have my dill. When dill comes on, I dry dill, because dill is never ripe when I'm doing pickles, or it's kind of starting. It's not heading out, so I usually have little dill plants. So when it comes to a big seed head, that's what I like to use in my jars of dill pickles. And I will pack jars, and I'll get, anywhere from 1 to 4 jars, usually at the time, off my garden. And then I will process it in the water bath canner for 15 minutes with the other jars full of water that don't have pickles in them. And then if I have extra brine, I pour it into a mason jar and put a lid on. And then next batch, I, heat that brine up to use it to pour over the pickles for the next small batch. So that's how I manage the freshness factor. And here's why. If you let the cucumbers even sit in your fridge for any amount of time, they start getting soft. And the longer you leave your cucumbers around, the more likely it is when you pickle your cucumbers, they're going to be squishy. Now, the other thing we've talked about here are ways to keep your pickles crunchy. You can go back to other episodes to hear about that. But also a way to keep them crunchier is pickle them right away. Like maybe if you're doing a lot of pickles, you can harvest the cucumbers the night before and pickle them first thing in the morning, which is a trick I like to do that keeps me from exhaustion canning. But, if you're out there at 4 and you're picking cucumbers at 4, just go pickle them. It doesn't take that long. Literally, it's one of my favorite canning demos to do, because I say, it's like wash the jars, sterilize the jars, pack the jars, pour the brine in the jars, put it in the canner, done. 15-minute processing time. I can do that in like an hour or less. It just depends on how long it takes water to boil. That's it. MidSummer foraging it's time. We're going to start getting goldenrod. The mullein is blooming here, which means if you're to the north of me, it might not be, but mullein flower is great for winter teas for congestion. And just a lot of that kind of winter herb. The mulberries have gone, not mulberries, the elderberries have gone through their flowering phase, so that's behind us. But the berries are on. They're going to get ripe any day now, right? It could be this week, it could be 3 weeks from now, but here in Tennessee, we're going to have this wave of elderberries come through, and that's when you harvest your elderberries and process them. So a lot of the medicinals are coming on at this time of year, and it made me think maybe next year we'll set up an open house, a holler open house for medicinal collecting, and do, rather than what we did for our June open house where we kind of sat around outside and hung out, which in August in the holler is a little too hot, schedule an early morning walk and go and look at what medicinals and what they look like. I think it'd be fun, like to go look at 5 medicinals, because you've got also, mullein is coming on. We've got goldenrod coming on. We've got that red one from the tree, sumac, coming on. Like all sorts of really cool stuff. So look at what's available in your area, and this is when I collect that stuff for winter tea. Lastly, I'll be extracting honey this week. I keep meaning to do it, and what is required for me to do this successfully, because I harvested the honey and threw it in the freezer to keep it from, smelling good and attracting ants, which would be death for honey extraction. You cannot serve honey with all these little dead ants in it. I did that because I knew I could not extract it on our open house weekend in June, and it's just been in the freezer. So I need to have enough time for it to defrost and then get put through the centrifuge and then totally processed and put away and sealed as quickly as possible. It'll probably take 6 to 8 hours for it to defrost, and then I extract. And then I go through a bit of a filtering process to get any wax or anything that comes out with it. And I want to be able to do that all at one time without interruption. And it looks like this week I have some openings in my schedule, which will allow that to happen. So I will finally have honey for sale. And yes, Mark Alexander, I already have your order in. Every time I say this, I get a text message from Mark saying, don't forget, I want honey from you this year. And it is very tasty honey. That's it for Tales from the Prepper Pantry. Next up is Operation Independence, where we talk about building ongoing local revenue into our lives here at the Holler Homestead, as well as learning skills so we don't need to pay a guy. And the first thing on my list is the Ditch Project, the Great Ditch Project of 2021, where I paid a guy. First thing I did was pay a guy. And I'm bringing this up because I see people spend a lot of time not paying a guy for things when they could pay a guy. And it takes so much of their time that their opportunity cost, which means there was another opportunity for them to do something productive, but they didn't do it because they were focusing on this thing, doing this thing themselves. Their opportunity cost is much higher than if they would have just paid a guy. And we had that happen with the Ditch Project. I love running heavy equipment. I know how to run a backhoe. I know how to run a skid steer. I needed to dig a ditch all the way to the footing of my house, all the way along the back of my house. And I didn't know where the water lines were there, where the gas lines were there, or if there were any random electrical wires. And I also didn't know what kind of boulders I'd run into. So the choice was, do we rent for a week a backhoe and do this thing, which I did on the other side of my house. And I can tell you why I'm a little hesitant to do it without paying a guy on this side of my house was that experience. It took us about a week to get the whole project done. And you can pay a guy for one day and they get it done. Yeah. So I paid a guy, and I was so impressed with his ability to just smoothly take that backhoe, whatever it's called, scoop, and not hit my house with it, but get the dirt out and get the big rocks. And his had like the equivalent of a backhoe thumb, so it could grab the rocks. It was awesome. And the ones you rent, like in our area anyway, don't have that, and they're not quite as big. And you know what? It's great to pay a guy. And I'm seeing from some of the people watching the YouTube live, I always pay a guy to do anything electricity. I've been afraid of it ever since I peed on the electric fence when I was a kid. I shut off all breakers in the house to change a light bulb now. Yep. Healthy. That would give anybody a healthy respect for electricity, I'm sure. Also, don't pee on fences. If you've never tried it, you don't want to know what happens. You don't want to feel that. Anyway, we got to the finish of this project, and the reason this is under Operation Independence is I paid a guy, but now I don't have to pay a guy. I can now see what's going on, and we can do a lot of the labor. And what we've been doing over the last 2 weeks since this was done is we rerouted all of my gas lines. We rerouted a bunch of electrical. We saw where the water line comes up from the pump house, which I've never known. Now I know where it is. I also know that it is in Schedule 20 pipe, which is not ideal. And I don't know if there are other cricks and cracks along the way. So I know that long term, I need to be thinking about maybe redoing the line from my pump house to my house and how that looks. And we've thought of a few ways we can do that without actually going through my house with a chainsaw, Nighthawk, to get to where the water line is now, but still be able to tap into the main and still protect it from cold and ice, which is very important. And we also found the line to the back pasture. And I now know why I have a humidity problem in my house. It's because of the shape of the bedrock. So my house is built on bedrock and it's south facing and it tilts down. So I'm built into the side of a hill. It's a cinder block house. So picture a half of a bunker. I am half underground, half above ground. I basically live in a daylight basement. I was digging into that part behind the house, which also tilts from, what's that way? That way is east to west, west to east. So the west side of the hill is higher than the east side, and then the north side of the hill is higher than the south side. And we dug from west to east along the back of the house. And in an ideal situation, what you have in this kind of construction is a French drain put in that's tilting from east to west, west to east, and it gets the water to run away from your house and not go under it. Well, when they dug down to the bedrock, it does tilt from west to east. And then it gets to this one place in my house and like along the back of my house, and it bumps up and then it bumps down again. So there's a big effing boulder midway that butts up against the back of my house. And so what the water's doing is coming, down the hill from north to south, down the hill from west to east. And then it's hitting that boulder and going under my house. I would have never known that if we hadn't dug the ditch. And I wouldn't know that we need to deal with that situation. The French drains they've put in the past have been above that hump of rock, which is above the footer of my house. So they took some of the water away with the failed French drain, but probably part of why that French drain failed is it wasn't like it was filling up with water from underneath when we had really heavy rain. So the next phase of this is either, demolish the house, which isn't going to happen, or figure out how to channel through that bedrock or figure out another solution. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we're going to channel through the bedrock to bust a hole so that we can put in a proper French drain that drains down the hill. And then I get to seal the cinder block on that side of the house, which is not really sealed. And then at the end of that all, I'm finally ready to start the process of reducing humidity in my house. Just the act of digging this ditch has reduced humidity by 20%, 15 to 20% inside my house. So if I do not run air conditioning and it's 92% humid outside, which it is today, it is 72% humid in my house. It used to be 92, 90. Like it was a little bit lower, but maybe 2 to 5% lower. That's taken a lot of strain off the humidity in my house. And what I've been doing is running dehumidifier, air conditioner, window units to try to knock this back for years. And it's just always a little too humid in my house. So I'm super excited about this. And once we get this done the right way, I can then start working on sealing the cinder block so moisture is not just seeping through the cinder block, replacing windows, looking at air leaks in the doors, and all of the other things that the experts, recommend you do to fix humidity problems that they're not like. Every time I talk to somebody about this problem, they're like, well, just change your windows out. I'm like, yeah, the lake under my house is a bigger problem than the fact that my windows are old, right? So that's what we're doing. So that's one thing under Operation Independence, and that's a big deal for me. We're able to probably get this done for $4,000 or $5,000 less than if I'd paid a guy. But I did have to pay a guy to get there. So I'm super excited. The other thing is we did a great meat canning webinar for the membership portal for Living Free in Tennessee members. That video is going up on the membership portal if you missed it this week sometime. I have Pranav working on it this week, and he usually gets it done in a day or two, and then I'll throw the link up on the video page. And here's the feedback I got. I'm not going to say who this is from, but they're a podcast listener, so they know who they are. So just wanted to say thanks for all you do. I was on the meat canning webinar, and it was great. While I have canned, it's not as consistent as I want. I've been listening to you for years and joined your membership fairly recently. We are not as prepared as we should be, but we've done little things here and there, and I'm not very social online, but I hope to put myself out there more and meet more like-minded people. And an email like that, guys, isn't that easy to send sometimes. Somebody admitted, maybe they're not as prepared as they should be. Well, here's my take on that. Nobody's as prepared as they should be. And the only thing we can do to create the life we want to live, to have more stability in our life, right, is to take a step at a time. And if a step is I can sometimes, but not all the time because I get tired, just know that and don't have crates and crates of food waiting to be canned that go bad, which is what I did last year, right? Because I got so busy and then I was like, I can can all the tomatoes. And it was like, I can't can all the tomatoes and they just went bad. And now I'm feeding them to the pig. Just admit it and do what you can. Do what you can with the skills you have. Learn a new skill once in a while and frame your future in a positive light so you can move that direction. That's the best you could do. I'm so glad you were on that webinar. And our next month's webinar is going to be mozzarella cheese. And I have had a request for something business topic for one. So I'm looking for a little more guidance than something business topic. Like I can walk you through how I make a spreadsheet, but it'll be my spreadsheet, not your spreadsheet for financial modeling or something else. What are you interested in? Or I can get somebody on to talk about something. I don't know which topics you want. We've done branding. We've done search engine optimization. We could potentially do that again. We've done cybersecurity and privacy. What do you want to talk about? I could just talk you through how to start coming up with your strategic objective for in a business, and your marketing position. I'm happy to do that too. Let me know what you want. Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com. It is now time for the main topic of today's show, success and failure of the Great Reset, which was a personal reset, not the Great Reset where we talk about world domination by rich families who then lock down all our resources and make us slaves. No, nothing like that. It's more the great personal reset. And here's why I'm sharing about this. We all need a reset sometimes. All of us do. And there are different ways to do it. Some people are able to just go over a weekend and get it done. Some people have a conversation with themselves on a long drive and get it done. But we all need time to back off, get the outside perspective of what's going on. It can help to talk to a friend sometimes. And then do what needs to be done to make big changes that make your life way better, or little changes that make your life way better. And I've been needing one for a long time. Pretty much every time I quote unquote take a vacation, I don't take a vacation. And I come back more exhausted than when I left because I was out trying to have fun and do my job, right? I've had many of my holler neighbors say, like, at one of these times, we're just going to ship you away to an Airbnb somewhere and take your phone and just leave you there for a week with no access to the internet. And just you do stuff. So people from the outside, when they start talking to me like that, I'm like, maybe I need to spend some time thinking about how I can be more balanced. And my word of the year is balance. So part of why I took this reset was I want to be more balanced in how the business is going and how my life integrates with my home business. Because the danger of having a home business is you work all the time and you forget to do some of those other things that you also like to do. If you're going to have a home business, the best way to do it is do something you love, right? So that every time you go do the thing you love, like roasting coffee, you're enjoying what you're doing. At the same time, you may have something you can do as a home business that you don't love, but it makes you a boat ton of money for only 4 hours of work a day. That's also not a bad approach because that frees up your day. So there are lots of ways to go at this. And I was giving advice to my friend John about, he was in a situation where he's like, I've got all these business things going on. I'm having big changes in my life. Head exploding. And I said, what you need to do is choose one of these 5 things you wish were better organized. Take a whole week off, prepare your customers, don't talk to anybody, and spend the 1 week solving that one systems problem. Because a lot of the times I find there are 2 reasons why I get overwhelmed. 1, I overcommitted and said yes to too many things. 2, the systems that I need to have set up to make things efficient aren't set up because I keep making the decision to just get the thing done rather than set up a system that makes it easier to do. Okay? So I told him to do that. And then I started thinking and I started looking at my schedule and I was like, you know what? It was on a Friday. if next Monday I double down on recording podcasts and I roast all the coffee and I roast all the subscription orders I know are coming, and I put a notice on my website that says, if you order this week, you're not getting your coffee, I can take the whole week off and focus on some of these household systems, because I want to fix my zone zero. My zone zero is not efficient. It's not efficient. Pieces of it are efficient, but other pieces are not efficient. And I don't feel comfortable in my own home because there are places that are not efficient. And the only person who can fix it is the only person who can fix any problem in my life. That's me, right? That's me. So I did it, and I started talking about it on the website. And Wednesday of that week, I found out my dog had liver cancer, which is terminal. And I love my dog. It's the first dog I've ever had a close connection with. That was hard for me emotionally. And I had done really well at doing double work. And and she was so sick, guys. She was so sick. I wasn't sure she was going to make it through the week that week. And I ended up prioritizing time with her and trying to figure this out with her. And just taking time to be sad over doing everything I needed to do double. So when I came into the beginning of my reset week, I had coffee orders I had not produced. And there's no way I'm making people wait for coffee. Like minimum amount of time. I had 2 customers who ended up with a 3 business day turnaround on their order. And I felt really guilty about that. And I was like, I've just got to get it done, right? So I shut down. And what ended up happening is, luckily I had double recorded all my podcasts. I had not double recorded all my thoughts of the walk. And I was like, that's no big deal because I'm going on a walk and I can just record it and upload it and be done with it. And that went well. And I was supposed to do a Wednesday show and a Monday show and an interview show. I ended up producing 2 interview shows because I already had the interviews. So that was faster. And then I went into my week. And these are the lessons I learned from taking a great reset. And the first one's the most important. I've basically laid the foundation for this, right? Go all in. If you're going to do a big reset like this, go all in. I did not go all in. I came into the week and still had deliverables, and I was still producing some things for clients up until Wednesday of the week. And it started on a Sunday, really. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was still doing it. So then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was really my reset. But then I had an event scheduled on Saturday. So then I roasted coffee on Thursday for the event. So really I got Friday. And then Sunday after the event, I got stuff done, but I was like, meh. So out of all of that, I really only got 1 full day. I got pieces of days on other days when I usually wouldn't have had that time, but I didn't go all in. And that was a problem. And I know the drive to deliver people their coffee orders is strong in me. I do not like to see orders sitting at hollowroast.com that are unfulfilled because I know somebody needs coffee and they're not getting coffee. I don't like that. And I had longer than usual turnaround times when I was recovering from shingles. So I just couldn't let the orders sit there. One of these times, I am going to let the orders sit there, right? I am going to let the orders sit there. And I do have a question from the live stream. Did you have time with your pup the week before? A fair trade? Yes. And I took lots of time with my pup during the week. The second lesson learned is take responsibility for focus. If you're going to do a great reset, you got to take responsibility for it and really do a reset. What I should have done once I got off my off kilter, right? Once I got off kilter and knew that I wasn't delivering because I wanted to give time for the dog, I should have just rescheduled the reset. It wouldn't have been a problem. I could have scheduled it for last week instead of the week before last, and it would have been fine. And I would have just, worked really hard another week and then taken last week off. It would have been fine. But because I wasn't going anywhere, I didn't have like a place rented, right? I didn't have anything scheduled per se. I could have just gone as normal and double recorded again, and it would have been great. And I would have caught up on some paperwork stuff for the business that I'm still catching up on. So take responsibility for focus. And I mean that in two ways. The other one is this. My friend John, he did this wheat reset week and he went into it. Same thing happened. He got pulled in a million directions at first. And then the thing he wanted to accomplish for his businesses was something outside, and it proceeded to pour down rain the whole time. He basically needed to adjust as well, right? And he ended up, instead of like reorienting on an inside thing, he was like, I just didn't get it done. And so it didn't really help. Mine, it did help. I did have my one thing make progress. So there is that. And that's the other thing. I just said my one thing. And you guys know about my process of my three things. If you're new to the podcast, you don't know my process of my three things, right? But have the one thing you're going to do as part of your reset. And that may be, as Ryan's saying on the live stream, taking a vacation with your family for 7 days and really building that relationship. It may be leaving the house for an extended period of time to get that done, right? Or it may be that you want to accomplish something in your house, right? In the house. For me, the one thing that was most important for me to get done is the remodel completion of my little bathroom. And the only reason I'm doing this remodel is all the plumbing in my house had to be rerun 2 years ago. In order to do that, we ripped into a wall to rerun the plumbing. And as part of that, the bathroom ended up gutted anyway. So instead of wood paneling, we put drywall back up. And then I am going to put in a tile floor. And then I have a new bathroom sink and the old toilet because it's fine. And, new paint on the walls, all of that, a new light fixture, a new faucet, and it'll be done. And it'll be like the nicest that bathroom has ever been since I bought the house. And that project has languished and languished and languished. And part of it is I don't feel the pain of that bathroom not being there because I have another one. And that one's just like toilet sink. It's like a half bath. So it's not like I need to take a shower in there and the shower's not up, right? And it's in a part of my house where I never go. So the only time I really wish it was there is when somebody's in my guest room and both of us have to go at the same time, basically. So it's not very painful. But it is one of those things that's in the way of everything else working right in the house, because the sink that's going to go in and the toilet that's going to go in is in the middle of my laundry room, and it's in my way of doing laundry efficiently. And anything else that happens in my laundry room, which is also the mud room, which cannot be used as a mud room because there's no room for it to be used as a mud room because that stuff's there. The cleaning supplies that would go under the sink are not under the sink because there is no sink to go under. You know how that is? So I'm like, I'm going to organize this. It goes in the bathroom that's not done. I'm going to organize that. It goes in the bathroom that's not done. I'm going to organize this other thing. Well, usually the things that would go there are in this other place, but they're not there because the things that go under the bathroom sink in that bathroom are, you know what I'm saying? So that was my, like, I had narrowed it down to one piece of frustration. And then I spent the whole week catching up on work, right? One organizing principle. And then all this stuff came up. And it kind of reminds me of something that happened today. I did not have a pen in my desk. I had the dry erase marker, and it's not fun to write on my daily schedule about in big marker because there's not room for it. My pen was on my dining room table. I was sitting here getting ready to start this podcast. I needed to write something down because I just got a new appointment on Thursday. I wanted to make sure it was on there so I don't mess it up. So I walk out of my room. This is a story we've all done. I walk out of my room. I see my dog who has liver cancer. I pet her head. She's doing a lot better right now because I have adjusted her diet and it's made her feel better. I walk out and there is a standoff in my living room over the water bowl. There's a cat and two dogs staring at the water bowl, growling at each other. And the reason is that the cat's kind of afraid to run by the dogs, even though they won't hurt him. And they're afraid of him because he has sharp claws. And what's going on is he just got water. They want water. And if he just leave, they get water, but they're afraid to get too close. So then I'm like, okay, all the dogs sit. Okay, I will stand between cat and dog. Cat run off. Okay, dealt with that situation. I walk by the coffee maker and I look over. I'm like, oh yeah, I just ate breakfast and my vitamins are there. I can finally take my morning vitamins. Nicole, take your vitamins. I go to the fridge and I get water in my water bottle, and I like fizzy water, so I carbonate it. I take my vitamins. I look around, I put my phone on mute so you guys won't hear people talking on my phone on this live stream or on the podcast recording. And then guess what? I walk back into my office. You know what I did not come back with? The pen. I did not come back with the pen. So then I had to walk back out and get my pen. That kind of thing happens to all of us all the time, where we just get into this scatter mode where it's like, I see that and it's in the way of this other thing, which is in the way of this other thing, which is in the way of this other thing, where if we just remember our original purpose, we can get things done, even if his stuff is in the way. And the way my bathroom went during that week is I already had the drywall done. I needed to paint the ceiling and walls, which makes the most sense to do before you mess around with the subfloor, right? Because then you can just like drip paint anywhere and you don't have to care about it. So I got that done. I actually got that done on one of the days I was roasting coffee, like on a Tuesday of my reset week. And then it could dry. And then I needed to put subfloor in, and the floor is 4 feet by 4 feet. And a piece of backer board is 3 feet by 5 feet. And I had told Tactical, who was at the store, to pick me up one piece of backer board so I could get that floor done, thinking 4 by 8 sheet, not thinking, 3 feet by 5 feet, which leaves me 1 square foot short of subfloor. And I didn't realize that until finally on Thursday. I'm like, on Friday morning, I'm going to get the subfloor in because of all the other stuff that happened, right? And it was like 2 p.m. I'm finally like, I've got 1 piece of subfloor carefully measured and in. And of course, no room in my house is square. So I had to measure all along, all the corners and all the angles. And then there's always that thing in the bathroom floor where you have to cut out the circle for the toilet out of the backer board, and you want it in exactly the right place. And the best way to do this is find something that's exactly as big around as your sewage pipe. So you can trace around it in a circle, and then however you cut it out, jigsaw, I used a jigsaw, but whatever, you cut that circle. And so I got a thing of paint, and it was almost big enough, but it's a little bit smaller than the sewage pipe. And I was like, okay. And I sort of took a Sharpie and drew bigger around it and hoped it was going to be right. And then I remembered, last time I did this, I had a pot lid. I had a pot lid that was exactly the right size. And sure enough, I had a pot lid that was exactly the same size. And I came out and I got to use that. My circle was perfect. And then I get that sheet in and I go back and I look at the remaining part of my piece. And I'm like, Mother F, if that is not 12 square inches, 1 square foot short for the room. And then I can't put the tile down, because the idea was backer board in Friday and then also stick the tile down, because it doesn't take that long to put tile in a 4 by 4 foot room. And then guess what? I complained about it with a capital B on Zello. Tactical heard me. He's like, well, I'm in Smithville. You want me to stop at the hardware store? I'll see if they have another one. And you have to understand, I bought the backer board at one hardware store in Cookeville, which is a totally different town. And there's a different brand of hardware store in Smithville. So maybe it doesn't match. And I was like, yeah, but if it's not the same brand, get 2 of them, because, I'll just redo everything. So he came home with 2 pieces of backer board. Turned out different. It was listed as a different thickness, but it was exactly the same. So now I have an extra piece of backer board, which is fine right now at my house. Finally got the subfloor in, and it was too late Friday for me to start tiling. And when I finally decided to get at least the tile down so I could maybe finish the tile before the end of the weekend, because as you know, I was at Willis's all day Saturday, I went to use my tile saw, which has only been used to do 2 things: a shower surround in Nashville 3 years ago, and a countertop at base camp like a year ago. Doesn't work. Motor's not working anymore. Also not in warranty, because it was so long between those 2 jobs. So I decided to rent a tile saw, because I'm stubborn and I'm going to get this done. So I go to rent the tile saw. They don't have an appropriate, like the only tile saw they had that would cut the tiles I need is way overkill for a 4x4 foot room. We'll just put it that way. But I have like the longer tiles that are 18 inches by 12 inches for this particular project. Guess what? To rent the tile saw was $100 before I even like added anything to the project. To buy a tile saw that's smaller, not as awesome, but totally adequate for the job, was $124. So I totally caved and bought yet another tile saw. Came home, and I was going to need to assemble the tile saw, cut the tile and all of that. And it was late and I was tired and the tile did not get cut. And that is where we sit to this day. My next piece of that project will be to cut the tile, stick the tile down, and then grout it. And then finally I can, put fixtures and trim and all that in. So I didn't get the one thing done I wanted to get done on my Great Reset, but I'll tell you this. I got a lot further along on the project, and I do have a path forward. Like I have a 2-hour block in my schedule this week to work on the tile. My rule about tiling is you do it at your peak awareness time of day and energy. You don't do it when you're exhausted, because that's a blade in your fingers and, out, thumb gone, bummer. So I do like to do it, and I like to do it in 2-hour segments. And I'm getting a comment right now on YouTube saying my goal is always progress, not perfection. That's what I did. I had one goal, one big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay, not really, but I had one focus for this reset, and that was to work on the bathroom while thinking about business stuff in my head. So then that brings me to the obvious next lesson learned, and Ryan's already covered it on the live feed, which is you might need to leave. If you're going to get a real reset, you might need to leave your house, especially if your house is the source of frustration like mine is. And if you really need a mental reset, you might, like legit, when I go up to Kansas where there's no good internet and there's this hotel with no services in the town where I go stay and wait for the roaster, I might stay there an extra couple of days. I might stay there a couple extra days and just like, boop. There is nothing to do there, by the way. I will just be there and I can walk. I think that's all I can do there. And hang out at the hotel, and there's no restaurant, like nothing. So you may need to leave, and that's not all bad. If you're going to do that, just decide how many days you can really leave and then figure out if you can turn off all your tech. Because my other thing is I might get myself a burner phone when I take the reset, that I'm the real reset where I really turn things off. Different phone number, burner phone, and 1 or 2 people who know how to reach me, so that I can call out if there's an emergency and they can reach me if there's an emergency. And other than that, no contact. And then my last lesson is the overarching, and I think you've already gotten it if you're listening to this podcast. Even if you flub the ball, even if you drop the ball, even if you don't do it right, a great reset is the right thing to do. Because the cool thing about what happened during that week is I made really important business decisions that I needed to make for the rest of the year. And I had time to look at some data to inform myself, wherein had I been doing it during the course of a normal week, I would have been trying to look at the data, tired, wrong time of day, those sorts of things. And I do this thing where when things are taking a really long time when I'm tired, where I try to shortcut, and then those shortcuts get me in trouble when I'm trying to make important business decisions that have financial implications, right? So I don't like to do that. Or I spend the morning doing it and then I don't get all my good morning stuff. Like coffee roasted in the morning is the best coffee, because that is when I'm my freshest. So I roast coffee in the morning as much as I can, right? I did get much of the tile project done. And actually, if my tile saw had not turned out to be broken when it had just worked the last time I took it out, I would have gotten the tile down and not the grout done. Probably the grout would be done by now, because the grout for 4x4 room with 12x18 tiles is going to take me less than half an hour to do. And then I just run in with a sponge every so often and clean it until it's like not dusty. Super easy, right? So I'm happy with progress on the bathroom, and I think I might be able to get it done before my mom gets here on August 11th. So that's my new like in the background. Will she get it done? Will there be 2 bathrooms when Mama Sauce is back in town? Stay tuned to livingfreeintennessee.com, right? And then I got rested. So one of the things I did do during the reset was if I wanted to sleep, I slept. If it was at 2 in the afternoon, I slept. If it was sleeping in the morning, I slept. If it was going to bed really early, I slept. And that really helped me. And I made sure to make time for exercise and walks. And even though I was really stressed out all week, that helped me a lot because I needed to reset my exercise schedule because it's become very easy for me to compromise with myself and not, for example, row or go swimming or the harder things I do, like the walk every day. I'm just getting up and walking, right? Today I didn't get up and walk. So this afternoon I'm going to probably take the dogs to the lake and go swimming because it's really hot outside. So probably not going to walk because it's hot, but I'm going to do something else. Doing the cardio is not happening, and I still haven't managed to get my hands on weights for weightlifting, so I need to figure that out. So that's like doing the push-ups instead of, pressing something, for example, is also not happening. And during that week, I started that reset habit, which is really, really important. I roasted a ton of coffee on my week off. Like, you don't even understand. I say I'm going to take a reset week, and all the orders also were coming in that week. And I figured, well, I'm at the roaster anyway, I should do it. Next time I take a reset where I'm not delivering orders, I'm not going to do that. But I was, it's one of those things. I have, one order for Hollow Roast dark coffee that I need to fulfill that I promised last Friday, and it's Monday. Also on Monday, I got order for 10 more pounds of it. So I'm just going to roast 12 pounds. And be done with it because it takes a little bit more time to do that, but not very much more time to roast 2 pounds versus 12 pounds. So that happened. And the best part about the reset is I had time to catch up with friends and spend quiet time with Sage. And Sage was so sick when we found out she had liver cancer that she was having problems going on walks with me. She had a lot of upper respiratory stuff going on, and it turned out not only did she have liver cancer, but she had a really bad dog upper respiratory infection, which we cleared up with some antibiotics. And then once I figured out that she's being made nauseous by her cancer, and so dog food is not palatable, so she just stopped eating it all. Once I figured out that if I give her different kinds of foods to eat, that she'll eat again, and she started getting her energy up. Every morning when we wake up, she's like, are we going for a walk? And we don't go for we used to go for 3-mile walks. We go for a little walk, right? We go down the road a bit. She gets in the creek and lays there and is all happy. And I come home without wearing her out so badly that the rest of the day is hard. That's all been great. And some of the friends I had time to catch up with included another friend whose dad's in hospice who has a meal thing. I got to cook a whole meal and bring it out and hang out with her. And that was really fun. So I'm glad I made that time, even if it wasn't all oriented on the bathroom. And then I got to be there for the ditch project, which tactical witches, I hadn't been there that day that the ditch was being dug because I was freaking out all day. And the reason I was freaking out is last time we dug a ditch like this, a backhoe rolled down the hill into my cinder block wall of my house, which then had to be repaired. And so I was like a nervous ninny coming inside saying, I can't watch. I can't watch. I can't watch. And then I would run outside and watch and be like, gosh, I hope that doesn't roll down the hill into my house. And he was like, why are you this weird paranoid person who I've never met before? I've never seen you this high strung. Like, why are you so tensed about this? And at the end of the day, I told him, man, I'm so glad the backhoe didn't roll into my house. And he's like, what is that about? I was like, well, last time we did this, the backhoe rode through my cinder block wall. He goes, that's why you've been that way all day. Like, I believe if he could have sent me away, he would have. I did go away for 2 hours. It was probably the best 2 hours of his day because I was such a wreck about the whole thing. That got done. And then I loved being able to go. So John Willis over at SOE Tactical had an open house, and it's a commitment to go there. It's like 2.5, 3 hour drive to get out there. and then it's a 2.5, 3 hour drive home. So like if I'm going to go to an open house and stay late, what I should do is rent an Airbnb, which I did not do. Should have done that. Like spending the night is not a bad idea for an all-day event out there. Or I'm going to be driving a lot in one day. And I was able to mentally like do that and energetically do that, in part because I'm stubborn and decided to do that, but also because I had caught up on the energy. I had time to make sure, because I was able to set up and sell coffee there too, which was great. I met so many cool people at this event. If you ever get a chance to go to one of its open houses, you should totally go check it out. There's just people from all walks of life, all interested in something similar, and they're great. I mean, I didn't know anybody. Like when I knew the Willises, and I knew a couple other people, and a couple other people listened to my podcast who were there, but I basically didn't know anybody there. But everybody talks to everybody. It's a very warm, friendly environment. Anyway, I was able to do that. So all of those things were part of the Great Reset. And I made some pretty important decisions about priorities for my business, which is important as I seek to have balance in this adventure that I have, just building Nicole Sauce Industries, the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, Hollow Roast Coffee, all of those things. So I think taking a Great Reset is the perfect way to make big decisions if you can do it. And it might mean that you need to leave your house, but it also might just mean you need to start taking responsibility for saying no. Better responsibility than I took 2 weeks ago for not just continuing to say yes to delivering things, right? It may be something completely different. It might mean I'm going to go rent a pontoon boat for a day and tootle around the lake without my phone. I don't know what your Great Reset looks like, but taking a Great Reset imperfectly will still bring you benefits. Taking a reset will bring you more benefits. So my thought today is like, go out and do it. With that, if you like the show and the work I do, you can support me in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee over at hollowroast.com. 2, become a member. Members get access to webinars, and that's been our most popular benefit. But we do have other things. We have some discounts that you can use. There's a recipe of the week that comes out, and downloadable PDF files of things like the hog processing workbook. We also have colors of coffee up there, as well as a PDF copy of my cookbook, Cook With What You Have. That's all over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Just go there, click on membership, and sign up. With that, go out, make it a great week. Okay, the podcast is done. You know what you do first when you're done recording a podcast, my YouTube friends? You hit save. Always hit save. Has anybody ever not hit save? Yeah, I did that once and had to re-record the podcast. Now, because I'm live streaming on YouTube, not hitting save would have probably been okay because there's audio on YouTube too when it finishes getting itself done, but it can be a real bummer. So always hit save. Y'all want from the YouTube live stream? Doesn't look like you're totally ready. I just have a thumbs up from. And I always give it a little while because there's it's funny when I see your comments come while I'm doing the podcast, what I feel like you're 3 or 4 minutes behind me, right? Yeah. Tradesmen call people who watch over them helicopters. Yep. I tried really hard, Joe, not to be a helicopter in this situation, and literally would set an hour timer before I came out, and I'd be like, oh, that looks really cool. Should we turn off the power yet? Yeah. I was probably a helicopter, though, because I was a wreck. As I said, I left for about 2 hours, and I'm sure everybody was happy I was gone. But I also didn't look over his shoulder. He did a great job. I was super impressed. We're going to have him back out to do some work over at base camp as well. Any other comments or questions before I hit the road, Jack? Pound some water. Negatory. Okay. I'm going to laugh later. There's a delay. 11 minutes, 59 seconds. Holy cannoli. For us, I will. She's been The other dogs are really jealous because whenever I have steak and there's fat, that's her dinner. Or like Tactical's coming home with 2 rotisserie chickens. I'm going to take the meat off the bones and mix it with some green beans and some other stuff and give that to her for dinner portions. I've been giving her raw eggs, and a couple of times she just got like pork roast because I had all this pork roast, and that was crazy. Like the dogs are like, why aren't we getting the pork roast? So now all the other dogs are getting like little bits of something in their food. This is how much of a softie I am, right? The other dogs are like not happy that Sage is getting her special food. So now I give them a little bit of her special food because I just want them to eat their dog food. But I did read issues that that no grain and low carb is good. And I already feed my dogs a no grain dog food, but it also mentions that nauseousness issue, and the nauseousness issue, variety starts becoming more important. So I've just been trying to mix it up. And at first I was able to pour like fish juice or broth onto her dog food or milk, and it would taste good for her and she would eat it. So like for a while it was just a little bit of milk. And I did that for about 5 days and she's like, I don't like milk anymore. So that's a lot what's going on. And then I've also read that there are some spices like turmeric and other things that are dog safe that you can sort of put on there, and you can end up enticing them to eat. And the fact of the matter is, at some point she's going to stop eating. She'll stop having energy. Her quality of life will drop, and she'll either die or we will help her with a shot. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. A couple of times I woke up and she was so still on her bed that I thought she'd just fallen, passed in her sleep. I hope that happens for her. I'm not looking forward to this process, but that is what it is. Hi. Yeah, Hat. I'm still going. And yeah, bye, Hat. Anyway, any other comments, guys? It sounds like you're all ready to go. Thanks for joining the live stream. I'm going to start doing these about once a week, unless for some reason there's a problem with my internet streaming, which happens sometimes, or during high coffee roasting season, I'm a lot less likely to live stream because I'm recording the podcast at weird times. What that means, speaking of recording the podcast at weird times, is I may start recording Monday on Sunday sometimes. If I look over the weekend, like this weekend, I got a ton of orders in. I aligned myself mentally to delivering those orders to the mailman on Tuesday because I knew I needed to record this podcast. And I'll start roasting. It's noon now. I'll start roasting and he comes at 2. So I probably will have like one order out for him to pick up. And I have like the kinds of orders that have 6 to 12 pounds. So it's not like a pound of coffee. It's like a lot of coffee. That starts happening more and more as we get into the fall because people drink more coffee in the winter, give Christmas presents, all of those things. And so I was like, if I start recording the podcast on Sunday, which is not a mail day, then I can come in on Monday, which is always it's got Friday afternoon orders, it's got Saturday orders, and it's got Sunday orders all on one day. And while I can start roasting over the weekend, what I'm finding is working better for me is very concentrated roasting time. I can pre-record some podcasts and then go. And that may mean that live streams happen on the weekend sometimes. So anyway, thanks for joining the live stream, and we will start doing this once a week. Make it a great week again.